I knew something wasn't right the moment I saw the note. It was just a small piece of paper tucked under a stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter. Half hidden, like it didn't want to be found. The handwriting wasn't Emily's. It was sharp, rushed, with a phone number scrawled in the middle and nothing else. No name, no explanation. My first instinct was to shrug it off, assuming it was for work. Emily handled sales for a furniture company and was always juggling client details. But something about that number, it stayed with me, gnawing at the edge of my thoughts. I decided to test the waters. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, I casually mentioned the note. "Hey, found a number on the counter today. Client." Her reaction was too quick, too polished. She didn't even look up from cutting her chicken. "Yeah, probably. I get so many of those I don't even keep track." That's when I noticed her hand twitch slightly, her knife slipping against the plate. It was a tiny movement, but enough to set off alarm bells. Still, I didn't press her. Not yet. But then, things started piling up. The next day, her phone was glued to her hand, which wasn't unusual by itself, until I realized she'd turned off her notifications. Normally, I'd hear her phone buzzing with texts from her group chat or work emails. Now it was dead silent. The screen lit up once while she was in the shower, and I saw the name Jenna flash across the screen. Jenna, again. Her name had come up more times than usual in the past few weeks. Girls' nights, last-minute coffee runs, Jenna said this, Jenna said that. It was almost like Jenna had become her go-to alibi. I don't know what possessed me, but I tried to unlock her phone that night while she slept. It was something I'd never done in 10 years of marriage. I'd always trusted her. But the password was changed. My stomach dropped. Emily never changed her password. That was when I knew I had to dig deeper. The next morning, I pretended everything was fine. She kissed me on the cheek before heading out, saying she was going to check on Jenna's kids while she runs errands. The moment she left, I grabbed the note from the counter and dialed the number. My heart hammered in my chest as the line connected. "Yeah." A man's voice, rough and impatient. I froze, trying to think of something to say. Who is this? Who's asking?" He shot back, clearly annoyed. My mind blanked. I stammered something about a wrong number and hung up, my hand trembling as I placed the phone back on the counter. I wasn't imagining things. There was another man. That night, I tried to confront her, not directly, but enough to gauge her reaction. "How was Jenna's? The kids good?" I asked, watching her carefully. Her response was seamless, rehearsed. "Yeah, they're great. Jenna's got her hands full, though. Poor thing." Then, without missing a beat, she changed the subject. "Oh, by the way, I'll be working late tomorrow. We've got a client dinner." Client dinner? Emily had been working at the same job for years, and I could count on one hand how many client dinners she'd had. But her tone was casual, her face unreadable. I didn't argue. Instead, I nodded, pretending to believe her. All the while my mind raced. This wasn't going to end with me wondering. I was going to find out that I wasn't built for the kind of game I was about to play. But Emily had forced my hand. The lies, the changed passwords, the late nights. It all screamed betrayal. I couldn't confront her with suspicions alone. I needed hard proof. That's when I decided to bring in Ryan. He was more than a friend. He was the kind of guy who could read people like a book, always knowing what made someone tick. His cocky charm was the perfect bait for someone like Emily. I called him late one night after she'd gone to bed. The words spilled out before I could second-guess myself. "Ryan, I need your help. It's Emily." His voice sharpened instantly. "What's going on?" I laid it out for him, every doubt, every sleepless night, every piece of the puzzle that didn't fit. By the time I was done, he let out a long sigh. "You want me to what?" "Flirt with her." "More than that," I admitted, my voice low. "I need you to get close. See if she takes the bait." There was a pause. "You're playing with fire, man." "I don't care. I need to know." Ryan agreed reluctantly. The plan was simple. He'd casually bump into her, strike up conversations, and see how far she'd let things go. The first coincidence happened at a coffee shop Emily frequented. Ryan texted me afterward. She was nice. Too nice. Smiled a lot, asked about me. No hesitation when I asked if I'd see her around. My stomach churned reading it, but I told him to keep going. The next meeting was at her gym. Emily had just joined a few weeks ago, so it wasn't hard for Ryan to show up and pretend he'd recently signed up too. He struck up a conversation near the treadmills. That night, he called me. "She's comfortable with me," he said bluntly. "Not just polite. Flirty." "What kind of flirty?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "The kind where she holds eye contact just a little too long, laughs too hard at my jokes, lingers when she touches my arm." My hands clenched into fists. "Keep pushing." The third encounter was the turning point. Emily was supposedly meeting Jenna for drinks, but Ryan was already in place at the bar I suspected they'd go to. He texted me at 9:30. "She's here. Alone. No Jenna in sight." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. "What's she doing?" "Sitting with me. We're talking." I couldn't think straight. My mind conjured images of them laughing together, her leaning in close, her hand brushing his. Every text that followed twisted the knife deeper. "She's telling me how you don't notice her anymore. She's complaining about how boring things have gotten at home. She said I'm easy to talk to, that she feels a spark." And then the final text of the night. "She kissed me." I stared at my phone, my stomach flipping. I typed and deleted half a dozen messages before finally replying. "Are you sure it wasn't just the drinks talking?" "She wasn't drunk," Ryan replied. "She wanted it." The words hit like a hammer. Emily had kissed him. Not accidentally, not in a moment of weakness, deliberately. When Emily came home that night, she was all smiles, acting like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the cheek, her lips warm, her tone light as she told me Jenna had the best stories tonight. I forced myself to play along, but inside, I was unraveling. The next day, Ryan and I had a long talk. "She's ready to go further," he said. "You want me to keep this up?" The logical part of me screamed that I had enough. The kiss was bad enough, why dig deeper? But the other part, the one that needed answers, couldn't let it end there. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Keep going." The moment I said it, I felt something in me crack. I wasn't sure if it was my sanity or the last bit of trust one had in my wife. Either way, there was no turning back now. Ryan's updates had become a sick kind of ritual for me. Every time I saw his name pop up on my phone, I felt a mix of dread and adrenaline. I knew what he was doing wasn't going to end well. For me, for her, for us. But I needed to see it through, no matter how much it hurt. 2 nights later, Emily told me she had to stay late at work. Her tone was casual, almost too casual, as she kissed me on the cheek and told me not to wait up. I stared at her as she walked out the door, a gnawing sense of unease taking over. By now, I didn't even bother to pretend to believe her. I texted Ryan as soon as her car disappeared down the street. "She's out. Let me know." Ryan didn't disappoint. At 8:15 p.m., he texted, "We're at that rooftop bar downtown. She's all over me." All over him. My mind latched onto those words, imagining her leaning in close, laughing, touching his arm, her wedding ring glinting in the dim light. "What's she saying?" I typed back. "She's telling me how different I am from you. How exciting it is to talk to someone who gets her." The message hit me like a brick to the chest. I sat there, staring at the screen, a hollow ache spreading through me. It was worse than I thought. At 10:45 p.m., Ryan sent another message. "She's asking to go somewhere quieter. What do you want me to do?" I froze. This was it. The moment of no return. I had given him permission to test her boundaries, but now those boundaries were shattering in real time. I felt sick. My heart screamed at me to tell him to stop, to get out of there. But my brain, cold and relentless, wanted the truth. "Go," I typed. "Take her wherever she wants to go." Ryan didn't reply for a while. I sat in the dark living room, the silence crushing me. I couldn't even bring myself to check the clock. Minutes stretched into hours, each one more unbearable than the last. Finally, at 2:18 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Ryan. "She's not coming home tonight." I read the message 3 times, my stomach twisting. "Where is she?" I typed back. "My place," came the reply. Nothing happened. I slept on the couch. But she wanted to stay. She said she couldn't go back to you tonight. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall with a dull thud and fell to the floor, the screen glowing faintly in the darkness. I buried my face in my hands, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. Anger, hurt, betrayal. A small, bitter part of me even felt relieved. I finally had the proof I needed. Emily came home at 7:30 the next morning. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes wrinkled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She walked into the kitchen where I was sitting, sipping coffee and pretending to read the news. "Hey," she said, her voice tired but calm. "Long night at work. I ended up crashing at Jenna's. Didn't want to wake you." I stared at her, my coffee cup frozen halfway to my lips. "Jenna." Her damn go-to excuse. "Oh," I said, my tone casual. "You should have called. I would have brought you something." She smiled weakly and shrugged. "Didn't think it was a big deal." No big deal. I wanted to laugh, scream, or throw the mug across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I nodded and said, "Glad you're home." Inside, I was already planning my next move. This wasn't over. Not even close. That morning, as Emily busied herself making breakfast like nothing had happened, I could feel the tension boiling inside me. Her casual lies, her rehearsed excuses. She didn't even flinch anymore when she told them. Watching her pour coffee and hum softly to herself while my mind spiraled was almost too much to bear. But I wasn't going to explode. Not yet. I needed to be strategic, deliberate. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light as I leaned against the counter. "What's Jenna up to today? Thought I might drop by and say hi. Thank her for letting you crash." Emily froze, her hand mid-reach for the sugar. It was subtle, a split-second hesitation, but enough to make my stomach twist. "Oh, she's busy," she said quickly, not meeting my eyes. "Taking her kids to some birthday party or something. You know how she is, always running around." I nodded slowly, pretending to consider her words. But inside I was seething. The cracks in her story were obvious, but she didn't think I'd push. "You seem tired," I said, switching gears. "Rough night at work?" "Yeah," she replied, exhaling dramatically. "The client meeting went late, and then Jenna and I had a couple of drinks. You know how it is. Girl talk turns into hours before you even realize it." She smiled at me then, like she believed her own lie. I smiled back, biting my tongue so hard I tasted blood. After breakfast, I excused myself, claiming I needed to run errands. I got into my car, parked 2 blocks away, and called Ryan. "She's lying through her teeth," I said, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. "She told me she was at Jenna's last night." Ryan sighed on the other end of the line. "Of course she did. Listen, do you want me to call her out or wait for you to handle it?" "No," I said firmly. "Don't say a word. I'll deal with her." But how? That was the question. Every time I imagined confronting her, I pictured her deflecting, gaslighting, twisting the situation until I looked like the paranoid, insecure husband. If I wanted to corner her, I needed undeniable proof. I decided it was time to up the stakes. That night, while Emily showered, I went through her bag. I wasn't proud of it, but at this point, pride was the least of my concerns. Her phone wasn't in there, but I found something else. A folded receipt from a restaurant downtown. It wasn't for 2 coffees or a light lunch. No, this was a dinner receipt for 2. Expensive wine, a shared dessert, a late-night timestamp. It wasn't from the night before. It was from a week ago, a night she told me she was working late. My blood ran cold as I stared at the name of the restaurant. When Emily came out of the bathroom, her hair wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the bed with the receipt in my hand. "What's this?" I asked, holding it up. She stopped in her tracks, her eyes darting to the paper. For the first time in weeks, I saw a real panic flicker across her face. She laughed nervously, grabbing her hairbrush from the dresser. "Oh, that. Jenna and I went there last week. It was her idea. She'd been craving their pasta for ages." "Funny," I said, standing up. "Jenna hates Italian food. She told me that herself last time we had dinner." Emily froze, her hand gripping the brush. She recovered quickly, her face hardening. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying," I replied, my voice low and steady, "that you're lying to me. Again." Her eyes narrowed, and she crossed her arms. "So now you're going through my stuff? Is that what this is?" You don't trust me? Should I? I shot back. Because last night you weren't at Jenna's, were you? And this receipt? It's not for a girl's night. It's a dinner date. With who, Emily? Who were you with? She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. For the first time, she didn't have a ready excuse. Instead, she glared at me, her jaw tightening. I don't have to explain myself to you, she snapped, her voice rising. You're acting like a lunatic. Do you even hear yourself? Spying, snooping. You're suffocating me. Nathan. I took a step closer, my voice calm but cold. You're deflecting. Typical. But I'm done playing this game. If you're cheating on me, just say it. Be honest for once in your life. Her face twisted into a scowl. You're insane. I'm not doing this with you. She stormed out of the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I didn't follow her. Instead, I sat down on the bed, the receipt still clenched in my hand. She was cornered now, and she knew it. The cracks were growing wider, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came spilling out. I just didn't realize how messy it was going to get. After Emily stormed out, the house fell eerily quiet. I stayed on the bed for a long time, staring at the crumpled receipt in my hand. The proof was right there, but it wasn't enough. Emily could dodge, deflect, and spin her lies indefinitely unless I caught her in a situation where there was no escape. I needed her to admit it. The next day, she acted like nothing had happened. She made breakfast for the kids, chatted with me about their weekend plans, and even kissed me on the cheek when I walked into the kitchen. Her nonchalance was infuriating, but I stayed calm. I needed her to feel comfortable, to drop her guard. Later that evening, when the kids were asleep, I walked into the living room where she was curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Emily, I started, my voice calm but firm. We need to talk. She glanced up, her expression unreadable. About what? Last night. Yes, last night. And the night before. And the night you had dinner at that fancy Italian place with someone who wasn't me. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't say anything. She set her phone down and folded her arms, her body language screaming defiance. Look, I continued, sitting across from her. I'm giving you one chance to come clean. No yelling, no fighting. Just the truth. If there's someone else, I need to hear it from you. She let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. You're unbelievable, Nathan. You're acting like some paranoid control freak. I've told you 100 times. There's no one else. You're imagining things. My patience snapped. Don't lie to me, Emily. I know about the dinners. I know about Ryan. Her eyes widened for a split second before narrowing again. Ryan? She repeated, her voice carefully neutral. What does he have to do with this? I know you've been seeing him, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained anger. I know about the rooftop bar, about the nights you didn't come home. I know everything. Her face turned red, and for the first time, I saw genuine panic in her eyes. Ryan, are you serious right now? He's your friend, Nathan. What are you even talking about? I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. Don't play dumb. He told me everything. You kissed him, Emily. You wanted to stay at his place. Don't even try to deny it. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if she couldn't decide which excuse to use. Finally, she scoffed, shaking her head. You're pathetic, you know that? If Ryan said anything, it's because he's jealous of what we have. He's always been jealous of you, Nathan. He's making this up to mess with you. Enough, I shouted, slamming my hand on the coffee table. Stop lying. I know about the texts, the meetings, the nights you weren't at Jenna's. Do you even care about how this affects me? The kids. She shot up from the couch, glaring at me. Don't you dare bring the kids into this. I've been doing everything for this family while you sit here, accusing me of things that aren't even true. Her deflection didn't work this time. I stood too, closing the distance between us. So you're really going to keep lying? Even now? Even when I know everything? She stared at me for a long moment, her chest heaving with anger. Then, finally, something in her expression shifted. Her defiance softened, replaced by a flicker of guilt. Fine, she said, her voice low. You want the truth? Here it is. Yes, I kissed Ryan. But that's all it was. A stupid mistake. I was upset, I felt ignored, and he was there. I never slept with him. I swear, Nathan. It didn't go that far. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Even though I'd expected it, hearing her say it out loud was a different kind of pain. You kissed him, I repeated, my voice shaking. You told him you couldn't come home to me. You wanted more. Emily, don't act like this was some innocent mistake. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought she might apologize. But instead, she crossed her arms and glared at me. Maybe if you paid attention to me once in a while, I wouldn't have felt so alone, she shot back. You've been so wrapped up in your own world. Your job, your routines. When was the last time you even noticed me, Nathan? Her words stung, but I wasn't about to let her pin this on me. Don't you dare turn this around. I've been here, Emily. Every day, I've been here for you, for the kids, for this family. You're the one who chose to look elsewhere. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I stood there, breathing hard, my fists clenched at my sides. The truth was out, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the beginning of the end. The guilt, the lies, the betrayal. It was all spilling out now, and I wasn't sure either of us would survive it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Ryan, laughing, leaning in close, kissing him. Her words played on a loop in my mind. Maybe if you paid attention to me, like this was somehow my fault. Around 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove, not knowing where I was going, just needing to get out of that house. My thoughts raced as I replayed the argument, her lies, her excuses. She'd admitted to the kiss but swore it hadn't gone further. Could I believe her? No. The restaurant receipt, the nights she didn't come home, the spark she felt with Ryan. There was too much to ignore. She had been lying for months, and every word out of her mouth now felt like poison. Eventually, I parked at an empty lot by the lake and sat there, staring out at the water. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about everything I'd thought we were. The family we'd built, the promises we'd made, they all felt like a cruel joke. When I finally got home, the house was silent. I crept upstairs to check on the kids, tucking Liam and Ava in like I always did. Their peaceful faces brought a fresh wave of anger. How could Emily risk destroying everything for a fling? I slept on the couch that night, or tried to. The next morning, Emily came downstairs like nothing had happened. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her makeup flawless, as if she were gearing up for another day of playing the perfect wife. "Good morning," she said, her tone stiff but polite, like we were co-workers who'd had a minor disagreement. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared out the kitchen window, waiting for her to say something real. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Nathan, we need to talk about last night." I turned to face her, crossing my arms. "Yeah, we do. But I'm done talking if all you're going to do is lie." Her face hardened, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes. Fear. Maybe. "I wasn't lying, Nathan. I told you the truth. I kissed Ryan and it was a mistake. That's all it was." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "A mistake? You've been sneaking around for months. Emily, you've lied about where you've been, who you were with. You've been saying Jenna's name so much, I'm starting to wonder if she even knows what's going on. And now you want me to believe this is just one stupid mistake." Her voice rose. "I told you why. I felt invisible, Nathan. I felt like I didn't matter to you anymore. Ryan, he noticed me. He made me feel wanted." "Wanted?" I snapped, my anger boiling over. "You're married, Emily. You don't get to shop around for someone else just because you feel a little unseen. You're supposed to come to me, to work through it with me, not go running to my best friend." She flinched at the words, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "You don't understand how it feels to be in my shoes. I'm stuck at home with the kids all day, managing everything, while you're off at work, coming home exhausted, barely saying 2 words to me. What did you expect?" Her words hit me like a slap. She wasn't sorry. She didn't even think she was wrong. "I expected you to honor your vows," I said, my voice low and cold. I expected you to respect me enough to be honest. Instead, you chose to throw away everything we built for. What? A few moments of attention? A spark with someone else? She looked away, her jaw tightening. I didn't throw anything away. I made a mistake, and I've been trying to fix it. But you're so focused on blaming me that you're not even listening. Listening? I scoffed. I've been listening, Emily. For weeks. I've been listening to your excuses, your lies. I gave you every chance to tell me the truth, and you didn't. So no, I'm not listening anymore. I'm done. Her eyes widened at that last word. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, stepping closer. I'm not going to live like this. I'm not going to be the fool who lets his wife walk all over him, who pretends everything's fine while she sneaks around with other men. I'm not sneaking around anymore, she yelled, her voice shaking. I stopped talking to Ryan after the kiss. I chose this family, Nathan. I chose you. You chose me? I repeated, incredulous. No, Emily. You chose yourself. You chose to lie, to cheat, to blame me for your choices. And now you're standing here, acting like you're the victim. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were from guilt or anger. I didn't want this to happen, she said softly. Neither did I replied, my voice cold. But it did. And now I have to figure out what to do with the mess you made. She stared at me, speechless for once. I could see the weight of her actions starting to sink in, but it didn't matter. The damage was done and there was no going back. I grabbed my coat and keys. I'm taking the kids to my mom's for the weekend, I said, heading for the door. You can stay here and think about what you've done. She didn't stop me. She just stood there, frozen, as I walked out the door. As I drove away, Liam and Ava chattering in the back seat, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but one thing was clear. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Something had to change. And soon. The weekend at my mom's was supposed to be a break. A chance to clear my head and shield the kids from the tension brewing at home. Liam and Ava were oblivious, happily playing with their cousins and soaking up the attention from Grandma. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop replaying every word Emily and I had exchanged. I kept checking my phone, expecting Emily to text or call, but there was nothing. Radio silence. It should have been a relief, but instead, it gnawed at me. What was she thinking? Was she planning her next move? Or worse, was she with Ryan? By Sunday afternoon, I still hadn't heard a word. My mom noticed my restlessness and pulled me aside while the kids were busy. You want to tell me what's going on, Nathan? She asked, her voice gentle but firm. I hesitated. I hadn't told her anything about Emily's betrayal. Not yet. It's complicated, I said finally. Just issues between me and Emily. I'll figure it out. Mom studied me for a moment, her brow furrowed. You're a good man, Nathan, but don't let anyone take advantage of that. Not even her. Her words hit harder than I expected. I nodded, forcing a smile, and excused myself to check my phone again. Still nothing from Emily. That evening, I packed up the kids and headed home. The drive was quiet, Ava dozing in her car seat while Liam stared out the window. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread as I got closer to the house. What was I walking into? When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Emily's car parked out front, but the house was dark. I carried Ava inside, with Liam trailing behind me, and got them settled in their rooms. The silence in the house was suffocating. As I stepped into the living room, I froze. Someone was sitting on the couch. It wasn't Emily. It was Ryan. What the hell are you doing here? I demanded, my voice low but sharp. Ryan stood, his hands raised like he was trying to calm me down. Relax, man. I needed to talk to you. Emily called me. My fists clenched at the mention of her name. She called you? What for? She's freaking out, he said, his tone apologetic. She told me you're taking the kids and that things are falling apart between you two. She wanted to see me, but I told her no. I came here to tell you that she's out of control, Nathan. She's trying to pull me into this mess, and I'm done. I stared at him, my mind racing. So what? You're here to clear your conscience. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I messed up. I never should have let it get that far with her. But I swear to you it was just the kiss. I didn't sleep with her and I didn't want to. She's the one who kept pushing, and now she's spiraling. She's not thinking straight. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. You expect me to believe that? You went along with my plan to flirt with her, and then you let her kiss you. Now you're here, acting like the victim. I'm not the victim, he shot back, his voice rising. I'm just trying to make things right. I told her to back off, and I'm telling you now, you need to be careful. She's not going to let this go easily. What the hell does that mean? Ryan hesitated, looking genuinely uneasy. It means she's not done fighting for you, but she's not fighting fair. She's angry, Nathan. Angry at you, at me, at the whole situation. She's saying things that don't make sense, trying to twist the story. She wants to make you look like the bad guy. My stomach sank. Emily was already a master at manipulating the narrative. If she was angry enough, there was no telling what kind of damage she could do. I took a step closer to Ryan, my voice cold. So what do you want from me? Forgiveness? A thank you for warning me? I don't want anything, he said, his tone serious. I just thought you should know what you're up against. I stared at him for a long moment before nodding. You've said your piece. Now get out. Ryan opened his mouth like he wanted to say more, but he thought better of it. He nodded, grabbed his coat, and left without another word. The door closed behind him, and I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. Emily was unraveling. Ryan was jumping ship, and I was stuck in the middle of a storm I couldn't see my way out of. And I knew one thing for certain. Emily wasn't going to make this easy. When I finally went to bed, I found her side of the bed made up neatly, a folded note resting on her pillow. It was short, but the words hit me like a freight train. I care about you and the kids, but if you think you're taking them away from me, you're wrong. We're a family, Nathan, whether you like it or not. The words felt less like a plea and more like a warning. Emily's note lingered in my mind long after I read it. The words were calculated, dripping with manipulation. It wasn't an apology, a cry for help, or even an admission of guilt. It was a declaration of war. By the time I got to work Monday morning, my chest felt like it was caving in from the weight of it all. Emily's silence over the weekend, Ryan's unexpected warning, and now this. It was clear she wasn't going to let things end quietly. At 10:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. We need to talk. Tonight. No kids around. I stared at the screen, my stomach churning. Part of me wanted to ignore her, but I couldn't. If I didn't confront this head-on, it would spiral even further out of control. I left work early, picked up Liam and Ava from school, and dropped them off at my mom's. Her worried expression said everything, but I reassured her. It's fine, Mom. I'll call you if anything changes. When I got home, Emily was waiting for me. She was dressed in one of her favorite blouses, her makeup flawless, like she was trying to remind me of the woman I fell in love with. But her eyes gave her away, cold, calculating. Let's get this over with, I said, dropping my keys on the counter. She crossed her arms, leaning against the edge of the dining table. You've been avoiding me, taking the kids away, staying silent. That's not how we solve this. I laughed bitterly. Solve this? There's no solving anything, Emily. You blew up our marriage. I'm just trying to pick up the pieces for Liam and Ava. Her jaw tightened, but she kept her voice calm. I made a mistake, Nathan, and I've owned up to it. But you're not innocent in this either. Of course, I snapped. Here it comes. Let's hear it. How is this my fault? She didn't flinch. You stopped trying. You come home from work exhausted, barely talk to me, and then you wonder why I felt invisible. Ryan noticed me, Nathan. He listened to me. He made me feel alive again. And yes, I messed up by letting it go too far. But I was drowning, and you didn't even see it. Her words sliced through me, not because they were true, but because she believed them. You're unbelievable, I said, shaking my head. You cheat on me, lie to my face, and now you're turning it around like I forced you to do it? Grow up, Emily. Marriage isn't about running off to the first person who pays attention to you when things get hard. Her face darkened. Don't you dare talk to me like I'm some kind of villain. I've done everything for this family. Sacrificed my time, my dreams, my body, to build this life with you. And now you're standing there acting like you're perfect. like you've never let me down. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my composure. This isn't about me being perfect. It's about you choosing to betray me. Do you even understand what you've done? To me? To the kids? Emily stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Don't you dare bring the kids into this. I am their mother, Nathan, and no matter what happens between us, they need me. They love me. And what about me? I shot back. Do I even factor into your version of this story? Or am I just the guy you're blaming for your bad choices? Her eyes narrowed. You want the truth? Fine. The truth is, I don't regret feeling alive again. I regret getting caught. The air was sucked out of the room. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. She smiled faintly, cruelly, watching my reaction. You think you're the victim here, but you're not. You're part of the problem. I've been unhappy for years, Nathan, and you didn't notice. So go ahead. Blame me if it makes you feel better. But I'm not going to sit here and let you play the martyr. I stared at her, stunned. You don't regret it? I repeated, my voice hollow. No, she said, standing taller now. I don't, because it made me realize what I've been missing. And maybe it's time you realized it too. The room felt like it was spinning. My hands were trembling, my heart pounding. This wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was war. So what now? I asked, my voice cold. You're staying? Fighting for the family you don't seem to care about. She tilted her head, a smug smile on her face. I'm staying because this is my family, my house, my kids. If you think I'm going to let you walk away with them, you're dead wrong. Her words hit me harder than anything she'd said before. This wasn't about love, regret, or fixing things. It was about control. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. You're not winning this, Emily. Whatever game you're playing, I'm done. I'll fight for my kids, for my future. And when this is over, you'll be the one left with nothing. Her smile faltered for a split second before she recovered, her voice laced with venom. We'll see about that. I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the first time, I felt something other than heartbreak or anger. I felt resolve. This wasn't just about saving myself anymore. It was about protecting my kids from the mess Emily was determined to drag us all into. It was time to take the fight to her. By the time I got to my mom's house that night, I'd made up my mind. Emily wasn't just trying to save face anymore. She was out for blood, and I couldn't let her twist this into something it wasn't. I wouldn't let her use Liam and Ava as pawns in her power play. Mom took one look at me when I walked in and knew something had shifted. The kids are asleep, she said softly. You want to tell me what's going on? This time I didn't hold back. I told her everything, the lies, the affair, the fights. I laid it all out, sparing no detail. By the time I finished, her face was pale, her hands gripping her teacup tightly. She said she doesn't regret it? Mom asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. She doesn't, I said, my voice flat. She regrets getting caught. But that's it. And now she's trying to flip the script. She's already made it clear she's not leaving and that she'll fight me for the kids if I try to walk away. Mom set her cup down, her lips pressed into a thin line. Nathan, listen to me. You need to protect yourself. Protect those kids. If she's willing to lie about this, she'll lie about anything. I know, I said, nodding. I've already called a lawyer. I'll meet with him tomorrow. Mom leaned back in her chair, looking like she wanted to say more but holding back. Finally, she sighed. You're doing the right thing. Just be careful. Emily's not going to fight fair. That much was clear. The next morning, I met with a divorce attorney named Claire. She was sharp, confident, and didn't waste time sugarcoating anything. You need to start gathering evidence, she said, her pen flying across her notepad. If she's going to contest custody, we'll need proof that she's not fit to have the kids full-time. Do you have anything concrete? Texts, emails, photos? I told her about Ryan and the messages he'd sent me. I explained how I'd orchestrated the plan to test Emily's loyalty, how it had spiraled out of control, and how Ryan had finally come clean. Claire's eyes narrowed as I spoke. So your friend is willing to testify that she pursued him? He says he will, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. Ryan's guilt had been eating at him, and I wasn't convinced he wanted to stay involved. Good, Claire said, jotting something down. That's a start. But we'll need more. Keep your distance from her. Stay calm. And document everything. Every text, every interaction, especially anything involving the kids. If she tries to use them against you, we need to be ready. I left the meeting feeling more focused but also more exhausted. This wasn't just a fight to end a marriage. It was a battle for my future and the safety of my children. When I got home later that evening, Emily was waiting for me in the living room. She was holding a glass of wine, her posture relaxed, her expression carefully neutral. "Back from your lawyer?" she asked casually, swirling the wine in her glass. I froze in the doorway. "How do you know I went to a lawyer?" She smirked. "You're not exactly subtle, Nathan. And honestly, I don't blame you. But let me save you some time. I'm not going anywhere. You can fight me all you want, but you'll lose. Do you really think any judge is going to side with the guy who works long hours and leaves his kids with their grandmother half the time?" My jaw tightened. "I'm not going to let you use them against me, Emily. They deserve better than this. Better than you." Her smirk faded, replaced by a glare. "Careful, Nathan. You don't want to play dirty with me. I'm not the one who's been spying, snooping, and dragging other people into our marriage problems. That's all on you." I stepped closer, my voice steady. "And yet, I'm not the one who cheated. You did this, Emily. You destroyed this family, not me. So don't stand there and act like you're some martyr. You're just trying to hold on to control because you know you're losing." Her face flushed, and for a moment, I thought she might throw the wine at me. But instead, she set the glass down and straightened her shoulders. "You want to fight, Nathan?" she said quietly, her voice venomous. "Fine. But don't forget, I know you. I know your weaknesses. And when this is over, you'll wish you'd just stayed quiet." She brushed past me, heading upstairs, leaving her empty threat hanging in the air. I stood there for a long time, my fists clenched, my heart pounding. She was escalating, testing the limits of what she could get away with. But this time, I wasn't going to back down. If she wanted a fight, she was about to get one. The storm came faster than I expected. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my boss with the subject line, "Urgent HR matter." My stomach dropped. I opened it to find a formal request for a meeting later that day, with no explanation attached. When I arrived at work, I was escorted into a conference room where the head of HR and my manager were waiting. Their expressions were grim, their body language stiff. "Have a seat, Nathan," HR said, gesturing to the chair across from them. I sat down, my mind racing. "What's going on?" The HR manager slid a printed document across the table. It was a formal complaint. My eyes scanned the words, my heart pounding. Harassment, hostile behavior, inappropriate communication. The complainant? Emily. "She contacted us yesterday," HR said, their tone neutral. "She claims that you've been creating a toxic environment at home and that it's been affecting her mental health and safety. She mentioned specific instances of alleged verbal aggression and said she's worried about the children's well-being as well." Couldn't breathe. I stared at the paper, my hands shaking. This is a lie," I said, my voice cracking. HR remained professional but firm. "We're not here to determine the truth of her allegations. However, given the nature of the complaint, we're obligated to take this seriously. For now, we're putting you on paid leave while we investigate." "Investigate what?" I snapped, my anger boiling over. "This has nothing to do with work. She's trying to destroy me because of what's happening in our marriage. You can't seriously be entertaining this." HR exchanged glances. "We understand that this is a sensitive situation, but if the allegations are true, it's possible they could affect the company's reputation. We'll need time to review everything. We advise you to focus on resolving things at home in the meantime." I left the office in a daze, my thoughts spinning. This was Emily's first strike. A calculated attack designed to hit me where it hurt. She wasn't just coming after me personally. She was trying to dismantle my livelihood. When I got home, Emily was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was any other day. She didn't even look up as I walked in. "You really did it," I said, my voice shaking. She set her mug down and turned to face me, her expression calm. "Did what?" "Don't play dumb," I snarled. "You filed a complaint with my company. You're trying to ruin my career now." She tilted her head, her lips curling into a faint smile. I told you, Nathan. You don't want to fight me. You pushed me into a corner, and I'm just defending myself. Defending yourself? I laughed bitterly, the sound almost manic. You're accusing me of harassment? Of being a threat to the kids? Do you even hear how insane that sounds? Emily shrugged. I'm not lying, Nathan. You've been aggressive, controlling. You think the kids don't pick up on that? They're already asking why you're so angry all the time. My hands clenched into fists. You're making this up, Emily. You're lying to hurt me. And for what? Because I won't roll over and let you keep living in this fantasy where you're the victim? Her expression darkened. You think you can take everything from me? The house, the kids, my life? No, you're not going to win this, Nathan. I won't let you. I took a step closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You're playing a dangerous game. You think you can manipulate everyone, but people will see through you. The lies, the fake victim act. It's all going to come crashing down. She held her ground, her voice just as sharp. And what are you going to do? Hit me? Yell at me? Go ahead. Nathan, prove me right. I stepped back, disgusted. You're sick, Emily. You've poisoned everything we built. And now you're trying to drag me down with you. Her smirk returned, cruel and triumphant. If I'm going down, Nathan, I'm not going alone. I left the house, slamming the door behind me. My head was pounding, my hands trembling. I needed to think, to breathe, to figure out my next move. Emily had made her first strike, and it was a good one. She turned my workplace into a battleground and painted herself as the victim in front of the people who controlled my paycheck. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. If she wanted war, she was going to get it. And this time, I wasn't going to pull any punches. Sitting in my car outside the house, I felt the weight of Emily's words pressing down on me. She'd thrown the first major punch, and it had landed hard. But I wasn't beaten. Not yet. The HR leave stung, but I had a plan. I pulled out my phone and dialed Ryan. He picked up after a few rings. Nathan, look, if this is about Emily. It is, I interrupted. And I need your help. There was a long pause. Man, I don't know. Things are already messy enough. If she finds out I'm still talking to you, she'll destroy me. I finished, my voice sharp. Yeah, she's working on that. But this isn't just about me. She's trying to use the kids against me, Ryan. She's lying to everyone, including my job, and painting me as some kind of monster. I need someone who knows the truth. Someone who saw her for what she really is. Ryan exhaled heavily on the other end. What do you want me to do? Come clean, I said bluntly. All of it. The rooftop bar, the kiss, the messages. I need a written statement. Something that proves she's not the victim she's pretending to be. Ryan hesitated. You know this is going to make my life hell, right? If she finds out, she'll drag me into the mud with her. I'll take the heat, I said. Just back me up. I can't do this without you. After a long pause, he finally said, Fine, I'll do it. But you owe me, Nathan. Big time. I owe you nothing. I shot back, my voice cold. You helped her tear this apart. The least you can do is help fix it. Ryan didn't argue. I'll write something up tonight. Where do you want me to send it? Email it to me, I said, giving him my address. And Ryan, make it detailed. Don't leave anything out. After hanging up, I called my lawyer, Claire, and filled her in on the situation. Good move, she said when I told her about Ryan's upcoming statement. We'll need that for the custody battle. But you're going to have to fight fire with fire, Nathan. If she's involving your workplace and using your anger against you, we need to dismantle her credibility. How? I asked, desperate for answers. Start documenting everything. Record your conversations with her. Save every text and email. We need to prove she's manipulative and acting in bad faith. It's not enough to say she's lying. You have to show it. After we hung up, I drove back to the house, determined to put Claire's advice into action. When I walked in, Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smirked. Back from your pity party? I didn't take the bait. Instead, I pulled out my phone and set it on the counter, hitting the record button. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady. Her smirk faltered for a moment, but she recovered quickly. About what? How you're trying to play the victim now. No, I said, crossing my arms. About the lies you're spreading, the complaint you filed at my job, the garbage you're telling people about me. Why are you doing this, Emily? She shrugged, feigning innocence. I'm just telling the truth, Nathan. If the truth makes you look bad, maybe you should take a hard look in the mirror. The truth, I repeated, laughing bitterly. The truth is you cheated on me. The truth is you lied about where you were, who you were with, and what you were doing. The truth is you're using the kids as weapons because you know you're losing control. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice turned icy. I'm not losing control. You are. You've been unraveling ever since this started. And now everyone can see it. Do you really think anyone's going to believe you over me? I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. I don't need them to believe me, Emily. I just need the evidence. And believe me, I'm getting it. Every lie, every manipulation. It's all coming out. She flinched, but her defiance quickly returned. Go ahead, Nathan. Record me, spy on me, do whatever you think will help your little crusade. But at the end of the day, I'm still their mother. No judge is going to take Liam and Ava away from me. We'll see about that, I said, turning and walking out of the room. As I sat in my home office, waiting for Ryan's statement to hit my inbox, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Clarity. Emily had drawn the battle lines, but I wasn't going to back down. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting my kids from her toxic games and rebuilding the life she tried to destroy. When the email notification finally came through, I opened it and read Ryan's statement. It was brutal, honest, and damning. Everything I needed. It was time to turn the tide. With Ryan's statement in hand, I knew it was time to make my move. I spent the next 2 days working closely with Claire, gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Emily's lies, her erratic behavior, her blatant manipulation. It was all laid out in a damning timeline. Ryan's statement was the crown jewel. He'd gone all in, detailing how Emily pursued him, the nights she lied about being at Jenna's, and the kiss that was far from a momentary lapse in judgment. He even included screenshots of messages she'd sent him. Messages where she complained about me and hinted at wanting more from him. It was airtight. The custody hearing came faster than I expected. Emily's confidence was on full display that morning as she waltzed into the courthouse, her lawyer at her side. She didn't even glance my way, but I saw the smug smile she wore, as if she'd already won. But the moment the hearing began, her mask started to slip. Claire was a force of nature, presenting our case with surgical precision. She opened with Ryan's statement, laying out Emily's infidelity and her willingness to jeopardize the stability of our family. The screenshots were displayed for the court, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Emily's lawyer tried to object, claiming it was irrelevant, but Claire shut him down. This goes to her character, she argued. She has consistently lied, manipulated, and acted against the best interests of her children and her marriage. This isn't about her mistakes. It's about the pattern of behavior that proves she's unfit for full custody. Emily's face turned pale as Claire continued, presenting my evidence. Recordings of Emily admitting to using the kids as leverage, messages where she admitted to lying about her whereabouts, and even details of the false HR complaint. When it was Emily's turn to speak, she stumbled. Gone was the confident woman who had taunted me in our kitchen. In her place was someone scrambling to defend herself. She denied everything, claiming Ryan's statement was a fabrication and that I'd coerced him into lying. But the damage was already done. Ryan himself appeared via video testimony, confirming every word of his statement. He didn't mince words, painting Emily as a manipulative, self-serving liar who had pursued him relentlessly. When asked why he came forward, his answer was simple. Because Nathan deserved to know the truth, and because those kids deserve better. The final nail in her coffin came when the judge questioned Emily directly. Mrs. Collins, he said, his tone stern. You've claimed that Mr. Collins has created a toxic environment, yet the evidence provided contradicts your claims. Can you explain why you filed a complaint with his employer if it had no direct connection to his parenting or this case? Emily faltered, her hands shaking. I was trying to protect myself, she stammered. He's been unstable and I thought. The judge cut her off. Protect yourself? Or gain leverage in this custody dispute? because based on the evidence, it appears the latter is true. Emily's lawyer jumped in, but it was too late. The damage was irreversible. When the judge delivered his ruling, it was like a weight had been lifted from my chest. Joint custody was granted, but the primary residence of the children would be with me. Emily was ordered to attend counseling and parenting classes before any revisions to the arrangement would be considered. As we left the courtroom, Emily turned to me, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "This isn't over, Nathan." I met her gaze, calm and resolute. "It's over, Emily. You did this to yourself." I walked away, feeling a sense of finality I hadn't felt in months. The fight was over, but the scars would take time to heal. That night, I sat with Liam and Ava in the living room, watching their favorite movie. Their laughter filled the space that had been so heavy with tension, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt peace. This wasn't the life I'd envisioned when I married Emily, but it was the life I had now, and I was determined to make it better, for them and for me. If I'd learned anything, it was this: you can't control the storm, but you can weather it. And sometimes, when the clouds clear, you find something worth fighting for on the other side.